Okay, and welcome to my series of going through the 2024 foundation paper 1 for AQA. So let's dive into the paper and work through each question. Feel free to either stop or rewind the video as we're going through, just to check any workings. So I'm going to do a walking talking mock on the paper 1. So the first one, I'm looking at how many marks it is. If it's 1 mark, I only need an answer, but I'm still going to show my working just in case I get the answer wrong. Okay, it's good practice to do that. So 270 divided by 7, any manual division, I'm just going to show as a bust up. Short division method, 7 into 2 doesn't go. Carry it backwards, 7 into 28 goes 4, 7 into 0 is 0. So my answer being 40. Okay, on to the next question. So, next question. This time, my question is worth 2 marks. So I'm literally going to show my workings fully on this one as well, because there will be a mark for workings. So, 8 away from 2, I can't do that, so I'm going to have to borrow from the one next door. So take 1 out of the tens column and put 10 ones in front of the units. So 8 away from 12 is going to give me 4. 3 away from 5 gives me 2. And then 4 away from 0, I can't do that. So 4 away from 10 gives me 6. So 624. Okay, if you just put 624, okay, then are you going to get the method mark? Don't give them a chance to actually take any marks off you for that one. Okay, so make sure you show it all workings. Question 3. Or question 2, sorry, 2A. Complete the statement. 2 meters is equal to, well, if I think I've got 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So I've got 2 meters this time, so just going to times it by 100. Okay, so it's going to give me 200 centimeters. Next one, 1 kilogram this time is equal to 1000 grams. So multiplication factor of 1000, so 8 times 1000 gives me 8000 grams. And question 2C, 24 kilometers to miles. Now it gives me a ratio here to use, or a formula to use. So 8 kilometers is equal to 5 miles. So I could do it like a ratio table. So I want 24 kilometers. So how do I get from 8 to 24? I just times that by 3. So I do the same thing on that side. Okay, 3 times 5, that gives me 15. So my answer is 15 miles. Again, we're looking at 2 marks there, so make sure we're showing how we're getting to our answer of 15. We don't want to put 15 down and get it right, but only get half marks. Here is a centimetre grid. What percentage of the grid is shaded? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 16 squares. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 shaded. And if I think about that, if I simplified that, I've got half of the grid shaded. Now it wants it in percentage, remember? Percentage is highlighted. So if I could make that bottom number 100, the top number, I've times it by 50, would be the same thing, 50%. 50 over 100, 50%. Okay, if you've got half, you won't get the marks for it. Okay. 3B. Kai has shaded 2 small squares on this centimetre grid. He wants 3/4 of the grid to be shaded. So if I shade in 3/4 of this grid, so that's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Okay, that will give you 1 mark because you're highlighting the area that needs shading. But what it says is how many more squares must he shade? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he needs 10 more squares. Okay. If we don't put the 10 squares, you'll lose that second mark. Okay. Also on there you can see I've written the 10 more there. Make sure your answer goes on to your answer line. Next question. So here are a list of 4 numbers. Use one number from the list to complete each statement. The number closest in value to 7. What if I just do a little bit of a number line and I put 7 in the middle? I've got to think, well, 6.92, that's down here. Let's say 6.9, and I'm going to go up and down in 0.1s. That's 7.1, and that's 7.2. Okay, so thinking about this, 6.92, well, that's going to fit somewhere about there. 7.27, well, that's right up here, so it's quite a distance away from 7. There's my 7. 7.18, well, again, that's further away. And 7.14, again, that's further away. So 6.92 is the closest. Looking at the second one, the number that rounds to 7.2 to 1 decimal place. Well, if we rounded these figures, 7.27, well, that would round up to 7.3. 7.18, that would round up again to 7.2, and 7.14 would round down to 7.1. We want it to 7.2, so it's going to give me 7.18. Again, thinking about this, it's 2 marks, 1 mark for each question. Did I need to show workings? Maybe not, but it's a good way to rationalise what you're thinking. Okay, next question. So here are a list of 6 numbers. Use 2 numbers from the list to complete each statement. So 2 different numbers. So 2 numbers that add together to make -1. So one number has to be bigger by 1. Well, I've got 6 and 5, 4 and 5. They're the ones I'm going to be looking at. And I need to make it a -1. So I'm going to have to do 4. Take away 5 would give me -1. And 2 numbers that multiply to make +20. So I need 2 and 10. Well, I've got -2 and 10. Well, that's going to give me 20, but it's going to give me -20. So -10 and -2, -10, -2 would give me +20, because a negative times a negative, remember, equals a positive. So -10 and -2. Okay. Next question. Here are 4 lines on a square grid. Which 2 lines are parallel? So they're never going to meet. But if we think about this one, if we put these 2 lines together, that's going to meet straight away, so it's not those 2. Q, that would come down and eventually meet with this one. S would come down and meet with this one, so it's definitely not that. That would meet with that one, so it's not that one. So it's Q and S. So parallel, if we extended those lines on, you would see that those 2 lines will never meet. So Q and S. Now a lot of people would get this one wrong because it's the wording of the question that makes it difficult. So here's a different grid. There are 4 points, so I need 4 points put on this grid somewhere that each have both coordinates that are whole numbers. So they're not going to go in the middle of the squares, they're going to go on where the 2 lines cross. Okay, the x coordinate plus the y coordinate equals 3. So how many things? I've got 0 to 3. How can I make 3 out of that? Well, I can do 0 plus 3. I can do 1 plus 2. I can do 2 plus 1. And I can do 3 plus 0. They're my 4 points. So that's what I'm going to plot. 0, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 0. And they're my 4 points. I don't need to join the line up. It doesn't ask me to. So I just need to plot 4 points. Okay, on to the next one. Write down the value of 3 to the power of 2. Well, 3 to the power of 2 means 3 times 3. Okay, and that's going to give me 9. The next one, write down the value of the square root of 144. That means something times something equals 144. And these two values have to be the same number. Okay, so x times x equals 144. And it's 12. Now, what you need to be aware of is that's a 1 mark question. If that was a 2 mark question, then plus 12 times plus 12 would equal 144. So the square root of 144 will equal 12. But minus 12 times minus 12 would also equal 144. So if I square root it, minus 12 is also 144. Okay, so if we're looking to do that, remember it's plus or minus 12. Okay, but because it's a 1 mark question, you would actually get the marks for just putting 12 in this occasion. Okay, so the next one, work out the value of 2 to the power of 4. Now again, remember 2 to the power of 4, 2 times itself 4 times. Okay, and one of the common mistakes that people make on this one is they do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and then they do another times 2. For some reason they'll multiply that 4 times after they've done the first one. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 is my answer. Okay, some people will do 4 calculations or get 4 answers and put 32 down there. 16 is the answer for that question. Question 7. Quite a logical question when we're reading it through. At a restaurant, vegan pizzas have 2 different toppings. The toppings are sweet corn, mushroom and peppers. Complete the table to list all the possible pairs of toppings. Well, I can have sweet corn and mushrooms, I can have sweet corn and peppers, or I can have mushrooms and peppers. They're the 3 possible answers I can have. So sweet corn and mushroom is done for me. Sweet corn and peppers is the next one, and mushroom and pepper is the final one. Now if you listed down the other one, so you did mushroom and sweet corn, pepper and sweet corn, and pepper and mushroom, you're just repeating those particular, it's still going to be the same thing on the pizza, which is why there's only 2 extra boxes to fill in, so we don't need to do repeats. At the restaurant, dough balls can be ordered in small portions and large portions. A group of people want to order exactly 44 dough balls. Okay, show how this can be done. So we're looking to say, well, if we look at the small and we look at the large, 2 different sizes. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do the times table of 6 and the times table of 10. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, and then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That takes us over the 44 balls that they need. Now I've got to pick a number of small and large portions so we get exactly 44. Okay, well if I look at this side, there's nothing that I can pick with 10. There's no 34. If I pick 20, I could go 20 and 24. That gives me exactly 44. If I go 30, there's no 14. And if I go 40, there's no 4. Okay, so my answers are 24 small portions, okay, and 20 large. But now let's go back to the question and read back up at what the question actually tells me, because that tells me how many actual dough balls that I want. But what it says in there is a small portion is 6, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 small portions, and I've got 1, 2 large portions. So my answer is 4 and 2. Okay, question 8. Selma has £10 to buy apples and oranges. Apples are 25p, oranges are 60p. She buys 9 apples, so I'm going to do that bit first. So she buys 9 apples at 25p. So again, I'm just going to do this in column multiplication. 9 times 5 is 45. Oops, 45. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 4 gives me 22. And remember, it's 25 pence. So in pounds, it would be £2.25. That would get me 1 mark. The second mark's going to come from how much have I got left. So I start off with £10, and I'm going to take away £2.25 from that. So remember, I need to borrow 1 from there and take it all the way across, put it into there, borrow 1 out of there to put it into the tens column, and then borrow 1 from there to put it into the units column. 5 away from 10 gives me 5, 2 away from 9 gives me 7, 2 away from 9 gives me 7. So I've got £7.75 left. Now I know that oranges cost 60p each, and it says she wants to buy as many oranges as possible. How many oranges does she buy? Now you can, again, you could do it 2 different ways. So just show it in 2 different colours. So you could do £7.75 divide by 60. And if I'm thinking about 60 into £7.75, that's going to be, I could look at that and go, well, that's, you know, sort of 60 times table. So 60, 120, 180, and so on. So I've got quite a big times table to do there. Or I could say, well, actually, if I had 10 oranges, 10 times 60p is going to give me £6. Okay. And then if I add another one onto that, that's going to give me £6.60. That's 11. And if I add another one onto that, that's going to give me £7.20. And now I've got 12. Okay, so I started off with 10, then I had 11, now I've got 12. Now, if I took that £7.20 away, because we're getting quite close, okay, 0 away from 5 is 5, 2 away from 7 is 5, 7 away from 7 is 0. I haven't got enough to get another orange out of that, so I end up with 12 oranges. Okay, so my answer, 12 oranges. That's the sort of working you could go with there. Now, if you did want to divide it down, think, if I've got, this is in pounds, well, I've got 775 pence is the same as 60. If I divide that by 10, I divide this by 10. So 6 is into 7 goes 1. 6 is into 7 goes 1. Oh, sorry, 6 is into 7 goes 1, remainder 1. 6 is into 17 goes 2. Sorry, remainder 5. Decimal points there. 6 is into 55 goes 9. So I'm looking 12.9, and I've got 1 remaining. Okay, so I'd have to then keep going, but we can see we haven't got 13. We can't have part of an orange, so I have to truncate it there and say 12. But in that sense, it would probably be easier to chunk that and do multiplication of 60p until you get to the answer. Question 9. So Alina and Sue play netball. The number of goals they score in 8 games is shown. Now you can see they've been nice to us, they've put them in order for us, and we need to complete the table. Remember, mean, median, mode, range. Range is the difference between the biggest and the smallest, so I'm just taking the two away from each other. Okay, median is the middle number. So let's look at the range first for Alina. We're on the top line. The difference between 12 and 26. 26 take away 12 gives me 14. That's my answer. And then Sue, we're on the bottom one this time, and we want the middle number. So cross off each one at a time until we get into the middle. Now you can see there we've got 2 things in the middle there. So what becomes smack bang in the middle and go halfway? I could do 20 plus 22 and then halve it. Okay, so that gives me 42 divided by 2 equals 21. Okay, if it's 2 numbers like that, we can see that 21 fits right in the middle of 20 and 22. So whichever method works for you. Okay, B. Which player scored the more consistent number of goals? The key word there, they haven't highlighted it, but it is consistent, which is closest together, okay, or smallest range is what we're after for this particular question. So if it's consistent, we want to have the smallest range possible. Okay, so if we have a look at the range, we already worked out the range for Alina. The range was 14. Okay, Sue's range was 18. So Sue had a bigger spread of data. Her spread was 13 to 31. Okay, so her spread was over 18 different points, scores, and Alina's was 14. So who had the more consistent? Alina, because the spread of scores was the smallest. Okay, or you could also put down smallest range. Either of those would get you the mark. Without the reason, even if you tick the right box, you won't get the mark for it. Okay, question 10. So we're looking at working out 35% of 1200. There's 2 different ways you can find percentages out. The first one I would do is find if this one is 100% of it. If I can find 10% of it, I just divide it by 10. So just think, if I divide that by 10, I end up with 120. If I divide it by 10 again, I end up with 12. And I only need those to be able to find it. If I could find 1% of anything and just times it by the percentage I want, then I get my answer. So I've got 12 times 35. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. 0 down because I'm times by the tens column. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. And I end up with 420. So my answer is 420. It's not pounds, so I don't need a pound sign. The other way you could do this is when you come to this grid where we're doing the circles here, if I find half of it, that's going to give me 600. So I'm dividing by 2 coming this way, and I'm dividing by 10 coming this way. So if I halve it, I get 600. Remember, that's 50%. If I halve it again, I get 25%. That's 300. So again, if I wanted 35%, 300 plus 120 gives me 420. There's one other thing I'll say at this point, and that is if we can find this square, or this circle, sorry, 5%, because we're dividing the percentage by 10, 50%, 5%. So that was 600, that becomes 60. I could do 3 lots of 10% and 1 lot of 5%. And then again that will add up to 420. So 10, 20, 30, 35. And remember that's percentage. So lots of different ways you can find out percentage. We're given the formula. We're told that window cleaner uses this formula. The C is the cost in pounds for the formula for the customer. The W is the number of windows to be cleaned. How much does it cost? So how much does it cost to times 6 windows plus 5 to be cleaned? So all we're going to do is multiply that out. 2 times 6 is 12. 12 plus 5 is £17. So we just plug in the value that they give us where the W is in the equation, and remember the number in front of it multiplies it. So 2 times 6 is 12 plus 5 gives me 17. The cost for another customer was £24. Show why this cost must be incorrect. So it's there telling me it's wrong. So let's do the formula again. So the cost in pounds is equal to 2 times the windows plus 5, and they're telling me that the actual cost was £24 this time. So 24 equals 2 lots of W plus 5. So what I need to do is I need to solve the equation for W, find 1W. So do the opposite by taking away 5 each side. That's going to give me 19 equals 2 lots of W, and then because I want 2 of them, divide through by the number in front of, or the coefficient. That gives me W equals, and 2 doesn't go into 19 as a whole number, it goes in 9.5 times. Now if we're thinking logically, why is it incorrect? Because you can't have half a window. So you're justifying that it's not a whole number, so therefore he's charged them for half a window, so that must be wrong. It says 2 bags, bag X and bag Y, each contain coloured discs. Bag X is 720, 7 out of 20 of the discs are red, and in bag Y 2/5 of the discs are red. Which bag has the greater proportion of red discs, X or Y? And it says we must show a working. So even if you guess one and you don't show any workings, you won't get any marks. So if I've got 2 fractions, if I can put them side by side and compare them, then that's going to be quite easy. But what I can see is they don't have the same denominator. So if I can do some equivalent fractions with the 2/5, I think, well, just do, that would be 4/10, it would be 6/15, it would be 8/20, and you can see now bag Y has 8/20 and bag X has 7/20, so bag Y must have the most, 8/20. Okay. Question 13. 2 friends share 240 in the ratio 1:3. Work out the larger share. So I want to know what this one is going to earn. Okay, what they get out of it. So anytime you divide into ratio, you add the parts. So 1 plus 3 gives me 4 parts. Okay, the second part, you take the total amount and you divide it by 4, the number of parts. So 4 goes into 2 0 times, carry it backwards, 4 into 24 goes 6, no remainder, 4 into 0 goes 0. So 1 part is equal to £60. And remember, we're going to go back to the ratio 1 to 3. So I do 1 times 60 is 60, 3 times 60 is 180. And again, back to the question, we want to work out the larger share. So the larger share is £180. So a tennis player wins or loses matches in the ratio of wins to loses 5 to 9. So if you think about win to lose 5 to 9, so loses 9 times out of how many? Okay, what fraction of the matches do they win? Well, actually they win 5, but how many matches have they played to win 5? So you still adding those two together, which gives me 14 matches. So it's 5 out of 14, not 5 out of 9. Okay. Okay. This question, a lot of people will not look at the grid and think, I don't know how it's working. So it says here's a multiplication table. Use the table to answer the following questions. So if we can look at this and go, well, actually, where is 3,843 in the table? Well, it's just here. What else are they giving me? They give me 63. So what else do I want to find out? 61 is the answer. So it's which two cells times together to make that one. Okay. The next one was 6.1 times 6.7. Well, I don't have 6.1 or 6.7 on my grid, but what I do have is 61 and 67. So I know my digits are 4087 if they were whole numbers. And I've got 1, 2 decimal places. 1, 2 decimal places. So it's £40.87. And then this one, 63 times 66. So I could just do 63 times 66 this way. But if I think about it logically and I look up here, if I did 63 times 66, it's going to be somewhere between these two numbers, right? Well, I know 63 times 65 is 4,095. So 63 times 65 is 4,095. So I just need to times one more lot of 63. So I'm going to add 63 to that. So that gives me 8, 5, 1, 4, 4, 1, 5, 8. Okay, so going down to the answer line, 4158. Now if you wanted to times it, you could just times it through and say 3 times 6 is 8, 3 times 6 is 18, sorry, 3 times 6 is 18, add the 1 is 19, 0 down, 6 times 6 is 36, 6 times 6 is 36, plus 3 is 39, and then that gives me 8, 5, 1, 4. So whichever way you choose to do it, I get the same answer, 4158. Okay, so next question. These two triangles are congruent, it tells me. Congruent means exactly the same. Okay. Write down the value of x. Well, if I think this side is 5, that's this one. If I think this side is 6, well, I don't have this side a 6 on there, so that we're going to say maybe that's that one, because I do know that this side here is 8 and there's my 8 side, so x must equal then 6 centimeters. Always check the units. There's sometimes extra marks for the units. Okay, we're not asking to prove congruency, we're just asking to read off the chart on that one. Okay, remember, if it was asking to prove congruency, you've used 3 sides, so you've done side, side, side is your rule for congruency. 16. C and D are positive numbers. Okay, so 0 upwards, positive numbers. Okay, C is even, so ends in 2, 4, 6, 8 or 0. And D is odd, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay, tick a box for each expression, C plus D. So all I'm going to do is pick 2 of these values, so let's take the first ones. So 2 plus 1, that's going to give me odd. 2 plus 3, that's going to give me an odd. 2 plus 5, that's going to give me an odd. So I'm happy that that's going to give me an odd. Next one, 4 times C, so 4 even. So 4 times 2 gives me 8. If I did 4 times 4, that's going to give me 16. So I'm happy that that's going to give me an even. And then on here, C divide by 2, so even divide by 2. So if I did 2 divided by 2, that gives me an odd number. If I did 4 divided by 2, that gives me 2. So there's both odd and even, so I cannot tell. Okay, so it's really easy just to do a really quick calculation of easy numbers. Don't go up to 17 or 24. Just pick an easy number to be an odd and an even. 17. So a linear sequence has the first term being 10. So that's the first term. The first term plus the second term is 39. Okay, so I know 10 and 29, if I add those two together, that gives me 39. So I know that must be 29. So now what I want to do is I want to do the fifth term. So I'm looking to see what the difference is. Well, I'm adding 19. So if I do the same difference for the next term, add 19, that's going to give me 48. If I add 19 again, that's going to give me 67. And if I add 19 again, that's going to give me 86. So my answer is 86. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth term. Look at the area of a triangle. Remember, the area of a triangle is base times height divide by 2. It's not a rectangle. I don't have all of that space. I've only got half of the space. So base times height divided by 2. My base is 20 in this case. My height is 6.3. And then I divide it by 2. Okay, so whether I times this out or whether I divide it through first, it doesn't matter. So let's times it out. 2 times 6.3 is 12.6, and then times it by the 10. So 20 times 6.3 is 126, and then I'm going to halve it, which gives me 63. Question 19. Okay, whenever you've got a vector, if I've got shape A here, and I carry this vector out, remember the top number is left and right. So if it's positive, it goes right. If it's negative, it goes left. And then the bottom number is up and down. Remember, if it's positive, it goes up. If it's negative, it goes down. So the first one's going back 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and then up 7 spaces. So let's say, for instance, it's up here. So I've gone 3 that way, and I've gone 7 that way. If I want to do it the opposite way around, okay, I'm going to do my left and right first. I go 3 to the right, and then I go 7 down to get back to where I started. So it's just the inverse of whatever the vector is. So 3 minus 7. If we look at question 20, write down the minimum possible attendance. Well, if there's 8,400, then the lowest possible attendance that would round up to that is 8,350. because if it was 8,390, it would round up. 80 round up, 70 round up, 8,350 would still round up if I rounded it there. The 5 is going to round that up to 84. Okay, so if it was 8349, the 4 would round it down, so that would be 8,300. So 8350. What's the maximum possible attendance? Now remember, we're dealing with attendance, individual person. So this one, 8,450, would actually round up to 8,500. So it can't be that, it's got to be less than 8,450. So if I think one person less than that would be 8,449. If it was 8,450, remember that would be 8,500. So the table shows the number of workers at a company in different years, 2015 to 2022. So here's my graph. Okay, so what it wants me to do on this one is to complete the graph. So I've got 15 plotted, 16, 17, 18, 2019 is 62, so I've got to think how many squares is it on each, what's the small squares worth? Well, there's 5 small squares and the difference between here is 10. So 10 divided by 5 gives me 2 people per square, per little square. So I'm going to go 60, 62 is that one there. The next one is 2020, is going to give me 70. The next one is 2021, 76, so 70, 2, 4, 6, and then 80 for 2022. Okay, now what we have to do is make sure we're connecting the dots on that. Okay, that's the graph done. Second part, estimate the number of workers at the company in 2023. So this next one, 2023, we've got to think, what is the actual trend of the graph? What's happening to it? Well, it's constantly going up. So what would happen to it? It seems like it's just tailing off a little bit. So even if it's carried on that same pattern, it would maybe be somewhere there. Okay. Okay, or it may actually go up even further, so it might sort of go back up to that sort of, so anywhere in that sort of range there, so anywhere between 82 and 90. So if I was to plot that graph myself and I was going to say where do I think it would go, I would carry that line on there and probably go, 83, 84 is where I would plot it. But you've got a range of 82 to 90 would be your correct range, depending on where you've plotted it. Okay, question 22. Here is a cone. The curved surface area of a cone is pi times radius times slant length, where n is the slant height. Where L is the slant height, sorry. So there's my radius, there's my height, there's my slant height. Okay, so if that's the formula, Beth tries to work out the curved surface and she says pi times 5 times 12. Well, we don't want to use that one, we want to use that one. So just looking at the actual image helps me to answer the question on this. What has she made? Use the height, not the slant height. Okay, so she needed to use L, not H. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Right, we're still part B of the question before. So we're still dealing with the cone. Okay, but this time what it says is Adam uses pi equals 3 to estimate the area of the base, just the base, So I've got a circle on the bottom there, so I'm doing area of a circle. Okay, this will be on your help sheet, on the insert that you get given. So what you need to do is have a look on there, because it's going to be pi times radius squared. Well, they tell me that they're going to use pi as 3, and we know the radius from the question before is 5. That's my radius. So we're doing pi times 5 squared. Well, 5 squared is 25, and they're telling me that he uses the value 3. So 3 times 25 gives me 75. That's the answer to that one. C. Beth uses 3.14 to estimate the area of the base of the cone. Is Beth's estimate more or less than Adam's? Well, if Beth is using 3.14, that is more than 3, so it's going to be more. And that's all you would need to do to justify your answer. 3.14 is bigger than 3. More than. Okay. Next question. So, Eric each day drinks a quarter of a pint of milk in the morning and a half a pint of milk in the afternoon. How many pints of milk does he drink in 30 days? So if I can say I'm doing a quarter in the morning plus a half in the afternoon, well, if I can actually do that as a quarter plus 2 quarters, that's going to give me 3/4 of a pint of milk each day. Okay, and then I'm going to times it by 30. Now remember, if I times by a whole number, it's like saying 30 over 1, and then times straight across. 3 times 30 is 90. 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, and then 4 goes into 9 twice, remainder 1. 4 goes into 10 twice with 2 remainders, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. So 22.5 pints. Or I could say 22 and a half. Question 24. I'm solving for x, so I need to get rid of the smallest variable of x, so that's 4x. So take away from both sides. 4x, 7 take away 4 gives me 3. Still got the 22, I've not done anything with that. 4 take away 4 is nothing, and I've got 29. Get rid of the number, move that to the other side, so I'm going to add 22 to make it 0 on this side, but I need to add 22 to both sides. So 3 lots of something equals 51, and then divide by the coefficient, divide by 3. So my x equals 3 goes into 5, once remainder 2, 3 goes into 21, 7 times, so x equals 17. $25. Okay, this is one that a lot of people actually struggled on. So in a house, the floor area of the living room is 26 meters squared, and the area of the kitchen is 16.4 meters squared. Express the area of the living room as a fraction of the area of the kitchen. So living room first, over kitchen 16.4. That would get you one mark. Okay, give it in your simplest form. So now what I need to do is I got to think there's some rules that I can't have. So I can't have a decimal within a fraction. Okay, so how can I easily get rid of this decimal? Well, if I times both top and bottom by 10, I would end up with 260 over 164. That gets rid of that decimal. Okay, so that's your second mark. Okay, now I need to put this into a simpler form. Well, they're both even, so I could divide by 2. Well, 2 goes into 260 130 times. 2 goes into 16 8 times, and 4 2 times. They're still both even, so 2 goes into 130 65 times. 2 goes into 82 41 times. Now 41 is a prime number, so what I can do now is I can put that as a mixed number. It does say simplest form, and we wouldn't leave it as an improper fraction, so I can take one whole lot of 41 out of that. Okay, which would leave me 24 left out of 41. So my answer for that one is 1 whole 1 and 24 over 41. I don't need it as a decimal, just need it a fraction in its simplest form. Okay, 26a. We're doing inequalities. So the key thing on this one, it gives me 2 numbers, so I'm drawing 2 circles. I'm looking at the inequality sign, there's no equal to line on it underneath there. So because it doesn't have an equal to line, I'm just going to do open circles at -2 and 4. And because my x is in the middle, I'm going to join those 2 together. Because now let's check it. If x was here, x is bigger than -2, yes it is. And x is this side of the 4, x is less than 4, yes it is. So I know it's in the right place. So a circle, if it's an open circle, if it's not got an equal to sign, remember if that was equal to, we would just have filled that in and had a filled in dot. But it isn't equal to it, so actually we can not fill it in. 26b. We're looking to solve for y again, but this time we've got an inequality sign. So we imagine it has got an equal sign. Okay. So if we've got this one, we're not going to touch the equal sign at the minute. We're just going to imagine that equals is there. We know it's that sign. Okay. But if we imagine it as an equals, what that enables us to do is just solve it as we would normally solve. So let's get rid of the 14 off this side by taking it away. So 5 lots of y equals 11 take away 14. I'm taking a bigger number away and the difference is 3, so -3 is the difference. Okay, and then I've got a 5 as a coefficient, so I just divide by 5 and I'm going to divide this side by 5. So all I'm left with is y. Now we go back to the original inequality sign. Is greater than or equal to, and then I do my solution that we found, which is -3 over 5. And that's the correct answer. Okay, on to the last question. Let's zoom out for this one. So describe fully the single transformation that maps shape A onto shape B. So I've got to think A onto shape B. So what's happened to what's different between A and B? So thinking about my transformations, I've got the 4 to think about. So if it's a translation, it's just moved, but it's exactly the same. That's a translation. If it's a reflection, it's changed orientation. Right? It's flipped, or it's either gone flipped horizontally or it's flipped vertically. It's a mirror image. If it's rotated, it's turned. Okay, and then this one is an actual enlargement. Okay, so it's not the same. It's not flipped or reflected. It's not turned. It's actually got smaller from A to B. So it's still an enlargement even though it's got smaller. It just means my scale factor is going to be less than 1. So it'll be a fractional scale factor because it's got smaller. So let's look at this. What I know about the shape. I've got 4 sides this way, 4 squares, and I've got 2 here. So if I can think of the relationship between 2 and 4. Remember, it's got to be a fraction less than 1, so that's why I write it that way around. If I simplify that, it's gone down to a half. So it's an enlargement with scale factor a half. Yeah. And we need to find the center of enlargement. Okay, the center of enlargement is the point that it's been enlarged from. Now, if I've got something like this where I've got two shapes and I don't know what the center of enlargement is, all I do is I do a ray line from it's difficult to do without a ruler on here, but you go from the 2 points and you just carry that line on, and that line's going to come down here somewhere about like that. Okay, so that's where that line would go. So from there all the way up, from there all the way down. Okay, and on this one you can see this bottom corner is on this same line, so it's going to come down to this point here. And your center of enlargement on here is that point there. The center of enlargement is 1 along the corridor, down the stairs to -7. So I need to have 3 pieces of information, hence 3 marks. I need to know that it's an enlargement. I need to know that it's a scale factor of a half with the center of enlargement 1, -7. And that's your 3 marks for that question. Hope that was useful, and I'll catch you next time.